Good morning, students. I feel very happy today to introduce you to one of the most brilliant writers of extraordinary talent and caliber, England's most revered and most famous poet and philosopher, William Shakespeare. The name of the play from which we are going to study a scene today is Julius Caesar, one of his most famous plays. In this play, we are going to do the murder scene. It's a very small scene in the play, but it has all the ingredients of a Shakespearean tragedy. It has irony, suspense, emotion, premonition, you name it, and it's there. All of you must be very curious to know a little more about the life of this great man. He was born in 1564 at Stratford-on-Avon in England. He started his career by writing histories and comedies. His popularity as a playwright was phenomenal. By 1592, he became the envy of all the dramatists of his age. He then wrote his tragedies, the best among which are Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, and Hamlet, plays which are considered even today to be the best among the plays ever written in the English language. Shakespeare had immense ability to hold his stories together, but it is in his unrivaled characterization, in his diction, extraordinary poetry, and his humor that his genius shows itself to be extreme. His popularity during his lifetime, though substantial, didn't reach the heights that it has since the 19th century. The Romantics especially held him in high esteem, but the Victorians worshipped him with such a reverence that George Bernard Shaw referred to it as bardolatry. The Bard of Avon, as he was lovingly called, is credited with 38 plays, 2 long poems, and 154 sonnets. A very prolific writer indeed. A man who only had grammar school education and one who knew little Latin and less Greek. Shakespeare's plays are known for their poetry and for their vivid, subtle, and complex characterization and a highly inventive use of the English language. He didn't write anything after 1613, and he passed away in 1616 on April 23rd, his birthday. I will now introduce you to Julius Caesar, a scene from which we are going to study today. Julius Caesar is believed to have been written in 1599. It is considered to be one of the first plays that was enacted at the Globe Theatre. Though listed under a tragedy, it does not have the grandeur and the darkness which overshadows plays like Macbeth and Othello. It belongs rather with his plays Antony and Cleopatra and Coriolanus to the Roman plays. Let us talk a little bit about the sources of the play. For his plays on English subjects, Shakespeare relied a great deal on Holinshed chronicles. But for the 3 Roman plays, he took as his source Plutarch's Lives, which were written originally in Greek and translated into the English language by Thomas Norton. Julius Caesar brings alive the 44 BC conspiracy against the Roman dictator Julius Caesar, his assassination and the death and defeat of his conspirators at the Battle of Philippi. Julius Caesar is different from his other plays in this, that the title character is not the main actor in the play. He appears only in 3 scenes and he is killed at the beginning of the first one. Marcus Brutus, the noblest Roman of them all, who sits high in the hearts of all the Romans, a very close friend of Caesar, in fact speaks 4 times as much as Caesar in the play. The central psychological drama is in fact his struggle with the conflicting ideals of loyalty, patriotism, and friendship. The structure of the play Julius Caesar is remarkably regular, unlike many other plays of Shakespeare's. Act 1 talks about the situation. There is happiness and anticipation in the air at Caesar's return from his recent conquests in Spain and the imminent prospect of his coronation. We are at the same time made to witness a growing conspiracy against Caesar, which brings together a few disgruntled and discredited individuals led by Cassius, an unscrupulous but clear-thinking man who is the initiator of the plot against Caesar. Act 2 of the play talks about a development in the form of a growing conspiracy against Caesar. Marcus Brutus, a very close friend of Julius Caesar, allows himself to be cajoled into joining a group of conspirators because of a suspicion implanted in his mind by Cassius that Caesar wanted to change Republican Rome into a monarchy. The growing tide of public support makes Brutus turn against Caesar, but not before a tremendous conflict with his own conscience. Forebodings are felt by Portia, Brutus's wife, in this play. They're also felt by Calpurnia, Caesar's wife, who begs with her husband not to move from home on that particular day. But against the wishes of the priest, who advises dark portents, and the soothsayer who warns Caesar to beware the Ides of March, and Calpurnia's request not to move from home on that day, Caesar marches on to the capital, goaded by Decius Brutus, who interprets Calpurnia's dreams in a totally different way. In Act 3, the play reaches its climax or crisis. The act talks about the assassination of Julius Caesar and its immediate aftermath. Act 4 of the play deals with the falling action, the declining fortunes of the conspirators. And Act 5, which brings the play to a conclusion, talks about the defeat and the death of Caesar's enemies. No discussion of Shakespeare's plays can be complete without a discussion of the use of dramatic irony in his plays. What is dramatic irony? It is a situation in a narrative or in a play where the reader or the audience shares with the writer information of the present or the future circumstances of which the character himself is not aware of. Greek writers of tragedy based their plays on legends, the outcome of which was already known to the audience. They made exceptional use of dramatic irony or tragic irony. A very good example of this from Greek plays is Sophocles' Oedipus. Oedipus engages in a hunt for the incestuous father murderer who brought upon plague on Thebes, little knowing that the object of the hunt is the hunter himself. The audience knows it all along. Shakespeare, in all his plays, makes remarkable use of dramatic irony, and in Julius Caesar too, Julius Caesar is replete with examples of the use of dramatic irony. We will now look closely at the murder scene that we are to study today. It is one of the most famous and significant scenes in the play. It forms the crisis or the climax in the play. As soon as Caesar enters the scene, the first words that he utters are full of irony. He turns to the soothsayer and says, "The Ides of March have come." The soothsayer replies, "A Caesar, but not gone." We, the audience, know that there is a lot of irony in these lines because the conspirators are all set to murder Caesar in a little while. Caesar himself doesn't know it. Artemidorus, a well-wisher of Caesar, petitions him to read a letter instantly because the letter bears tidings which are very crucial and very personal to him. The contents of the letter are made known to us in the previous act itself. I will now read to you, students, the contents of the letter which are made known to us in the previous act itself. Caesar, beware of Brutus. Take heed of Cassius. Come not near Casca. Have an eye to Cinna. Trust not Trebonius. Mark well Metellus Cimber. Decius Brutus loves thee not. Thou hast wronged Caius Ligarius. There is but one mind in all these men, and it is bent against Caesar. If thou beest not immortal, look about you. Security gives rise to conspiracy. The mighty gods defend thee, thy lover Artemidorus. Caesar, in response to this letter, says that what touches us ourselves shall be last served. This line is ironic because we know that had Caesar read the letter, he would have averted being murdered. I'm sure, students, this scene, the study of the murder scene, would have left a deep impact on your minds. Shall we spend a little bit of time thinking about what observations and what learning we have got from this play? I'm sure you would like to. There are many things that come to our mind. One is how Brutus, a very honorable, just, fair, and patriotic man, how his mind could be manipulated into thinking exactly the opposite of what his nature tells him to. How Cassius works on his mind is something that can happen to any person. Julius Caesar, a dictator, a very egoistic and boastful man who thought very highly about himself and who thought he was superior to the rest of mankind, also had a very kind and generous side to his nature. He was a very loyal friend to Brutus and to Antony. And when he sees Brutus stabbing him, he's astonished. He's so astonished that he feels that he does not want to survive this treachery and this deceit from a dear friend of his. And this makes him utter the very, very famous lines, "You too, Brutus," which I think has come into the usage in the English language so much that when anyone is disappointed with the behavior or with the attitude of a very close friend of his, is prompted to say these very lines. The mob, which was completely in favor of Brutus, is transformed after Antony's wonderful speech. "Friends, Romans and countrymen, I have come to bury Caesar, not to praise him." The mob is a completely different crowd at the end of Antony's speech, and they are all turned against Brutus, and a civil war starts right then. These are the many things that we have learned from this play. And I wish to end my lesson today with a quotation from Shakespeare himself, from a play of his called Macbeth. Macbeth, on hearing about the death of his dear and beloved wife, says these lines: "Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. a tale told by an idiot signifying nothing. Can anyone speak better than Shakespeare has where life is concerned? I don't think so. I don't think anyone could have given a better analysis or a more philosophical analysis of life than Shakespeare has in Macbeth. I wish to conclude my lesson on this note, leaving you with these very effective and very significant words. Thank you. After a few moments of suspense and misgivings, the conspirators begin to implement their plan. In accordance with the plan, Metellus Cimber approaches Caesar and petitions him on his brother's behalf, the brother who was banished by a judicial order given by Caesar. Caesar tells him that he was very disappointed and unhappy with him for his lowly courtesies and his couchings, which would have fired an ordinary man's blood, but he was no ordinary man. He was, he tells Cimber, like the northern star and like the Olympus. To read a few lines from the text. But I am constant as the northern star, of whose true fixed and resting quality there is no fellow in the firmament. The skies are painted with unnumbered sparks, they are all fire, and every one doth shine. But there's but one in all doth hold his place, so in the world it is furnished well with men, and men are flesh and blood and apprehensive, yet in the number I do know but one, that unassailable holds on his rank, unshaked of motion, and that I am he. Caesar reminds Metellus that Caesar can do no wrong. Metellus calls upon Casca, Cassius, and Brutus to help him in his cause. The conspirators, in accordance with the plan, move closer to Caesar and petition him on behalf of Metellus. Caesar again rejects them with equal rudeness. The conspirators move closer and Casca strikes the first dagger blow. All the other conspirators come closer to Caesar and follow suit. The last person to strike Caesar is Brutus. When Caesar sees Brutus striking him, he is shocked and he utters the famous line, "Et tu, Brute, then fall Caesar," meaning that you too, Brutus, are doing this to me. I don't want to live anymore. He falls down dead. Brutus then delivers an oration in which he defends his actions, and he assures the bewildered crowds and the shocked senators that no harm would come their way. The conspirators receive news of the crowds having gone berserk, crying and running about on the roads as if it were the doomsday. It is then that Antony comes on to the scene, grieving and mourning for the death of his dear friend Julius Caesar. He asks the senators to kill him if they want to kill him right then, because no time would be better for him to die than the hour of Caesar's death, when their hands were still red with the blood of Caesar. But Brutus assures Antony of their admiration for him, and he tells them that their bloody act was motivated by their concern for the Republic of Rome. Just as one fire engulfs another, their pity for Caesar was swallowed up by their pity for the Republic. Cassius then adds that Antony would have a very crucial place in the new government. Antony seeks permission from Brutus to speak at the marketplace on the funeral day of Caesar. Brutus gives him permission on several conditions, He says that Antony could address the crowds only after he has finished speaking to them. Antony should speak from the same pulpit that he has used. Antony should tell the crowds that he was there only with the permission of the conspirators. He should not blame them, but he could say good things about Caesar. These were the conditions that were laid by Brutus and which were agreed upon by Antony. Antony is left with Caesar's corpse towards the end of the scene. He seeks Caesar's forgiveness for being soft and gentle with the butchers. He prophesies on the wounds of Caesar that Italy would be torn by civil strife until the uprooting of all Caesar's enemies. Then enters onto the scene the servant of Octavius Caesar, heralding the important and crucial role that Octavius was to play in the rest of the play.